All right, so welcome back, everybody, for another series in the Accountant Showcase. Very interesting guest today joining us, Mfon Akpan, who is joining us from the Southeast today, and I want to bring some insight into his journey. So, Mfon, thanks for taking time out and joining us in our audience. So please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you so much for having me here, Chris. My name is Mfon Akpan. I am a professor. So I am assistant professor of accounting at Methodist University. I joined Methodist last year, so fall of 2021, I joined Methodist University. And I've been in the profession as an academic for, I want to say about 10 years now, for about 10 years. Before that, I spent about 10 years working in finance before transitioning into being an accounting professor. And I would say, as far as being a professor, I've gone the non-traditional, traditional route. So I didn't finish school and just start my PhD and then move into teaching. So I worked and then taught part-time and then went to school and then transitioned into the profession.
I like that. This is the first time where you in the accounting profession and became a professor. So I find that very interesting. So how did it get started from the get-go? Is this something that you were, foresaw as a kid? It was within your family, or did you have a mentor, or how did it all get started?
That's a good question. So my dad, it's interesting. My dad was a professor. So he has a PhD in finance.
Okay.
He hates accounting. He hates accounting, by the way, but he was a professor. And ultimately, I never imagined I would be a professor. I'm like, no, there's no way. And actually, I had a good colleague at when I worked at JP Morgan, who was teaching accounting classes at the city colleges in Chicago. And, we were, he was always talking about it. He was just always excited about these accounting classes that he's teaching and the things that he's doing. And it boggled me why he was so excited about it. And it just inspired me to, let me just take a stab at this. He's so excited about it every time, and he's always talking about his students in these classes. So I applied and wound up getting part-time jobs at different community colleges in Chicago, and it really stuck to me. And then it kind of snowballed, and I got asked to teach at different universities. And then after there was a point where I knew I decided this is what I really want to do. I made a transition into the academic world full-time. I was hired as a full-time professor, initially in Chicago at National Louis University. And then I was an undergraduate professor there. Then I got a call from a university in Savannah, Georgia called SCAD. And they wanted me to come. I came down there to teach in their business minor, and teach business. And then got to call North Carolina.
No, that's awesome. And teaching folks out there within the profession. Now, let me ask this. So we're the transition for you into a remote environment, or was your school already doing some type of remote teaching, or were you pushed into it during the pandemic?
Well, we all had to go into the remote learning starting in 2020. So in 2020, I was in Savannah. In March, so it was this, if I'm not mistaken, the spring quarter, we had to go. Everything went remote, via Zoom, in other words.
Did you find that it changed the way that you taught your students, or did it just seem like just a new piece to the puzzle, or did you have to overhaul your curriculum, or how was that for you when working with your students?
That's a good one, Chris. It wasn't a change of the curriculum. It was more of the implementation. So I'm big on flipped classroom and doing a lot of group work. So then you have to think, how can I translate that into Zoom if you have a remote class? Because for those because you asked a good question, there's a difference between the online course, which is what they call asynchronous, where basically you're on your own, versus remote, where the aim is to have that similar engagement, like you're in the classroom, but online. Like right now, we're remote. Instead of us meeting in your office, we're meeting remotely. So I think it was a challenge with creating those experiences, learning new tools to use to create that type of group environment with the students remotely.
Mm-hmm. Now, have you guys gone back to the in-school model, or is it like hybrid, or how is it come about nowadays?
We're back in person. So we're back in person, face to face with students.
So the accounting profession was thrown a wrench, right? The word remote and the word virtual was not really adopted at all, and then folks were pushed into it, and the profession was deemed what's that word? Necessity, critical, and then most of the time the staff out there, right, everybody was coming to the office. Now you have a new workforce coming in, and they want to be able to have that flexibility. So that hybrid word, the remote word, has become very prevalent. So you and your folks went back into the in office per se model. Where I was going to say, how do you see the profession in general, where it was prior to the pandemic, and then where it's going to after within the next few years?
Well, I'll tell you how it is now. A lot of it is remote work, and so there's technology involved. So many of my students. So I have a student now he's got a job at PwC. Another student be working for Deloitte. And then just in my role, I'm in contact with practitioners at KPMG and at other firms. And I would say across the board, the work from home option is broadly adopted, and that I shouldn't say expectation. I would say the students would, as far as the students being familiar with Microsoft Teams or meeting tools, I think is very important because they'll be using that as far as staying connected with their teams and working. So it's a lot more reliance on technology. So productivity type software, which ties in, combined. I think the other part you were asking, how things changing with CPA evolution. So with the CPA exam changing in 2024, with the technology and the analytics mindset. So again, more technology and data analytics type of focus.
Now, do you think this is good? Because I feel that the profession has been very slow to, bring in automation and technology at such a very, very slow pace in general. Now, you have a new workforce coming in with a mindset. Folks realize that clients realize that you don't need to meet in person. So a lot has changed. So is this going to disrupt the industry in a way that for positive reaction, or do you think it'll get a lot of pushback, or where do you foresee it and as far as the adoption of technology in the future?
I'm trying to reword an expression. Is big boulders roll down hills. So eventually things are going to trickle down because you have these large firms that are looking for ways to become more efficient and cut costs. Mm-hmm. And technology is one of the ways to do that. And that tends to trickle down so you have these different platforms as they become more cost effective for smaller, medium-sized businesses. Definitely, they'll look for ways to also become more efficient and save money in those ways. And looking at more and more of the importance of analytics, particularly in the area of social media and things. So technology, I think, is definitely going to be a bigger and bigger part of the accounting space.
I remember I've been doing this, working with clients for Entigrity for 5 years this May. And I remember 4 years ago, we used Zoom and no one knew how to set it up. And so I had to reserve sometimes 10 minutes of a 30-minute call, just providing IT support and walking them through it. Right. And just a few years ago. And so I think technology, it's you could love it or you could hate it. You have to embrace it. But yeah, it's something that's going to be beneficial. But you always need that human touch, that human interaction, whether, especially with graduates moving into the workforce. My thoughts are to have them kind of in the office and build their experience, and then they can kind of have the ability to work remotely. But I see that working with clients that graduates are demanding to only work remotely. So it's interesting. Have you seen your students have a lot of questions in regards to how to approach a job or anything like that?
Yeah, it's that's tough because from my perspective, I'm not a practitioner, so I'm an academic, and then part of my role is to kind of look around the corner. Yeah. So I'm always, because I've got a freshman, let's say, who comes in the fall, they're going to graduate in 4 years. So I have to kind of look around the corner as to, how can I help this and prepare this student when they get in the work world in 4 years from now, which, like you mentioned, I can give you an example. With Zoom, in 2019, in 2020, I had a student thank me for being exposed to Zoom. Wow. Because the student in our class, I would have visitors Zoom in from Chicago. I'd have business owners and things Zoom in. The students had never seen Zoom. Wow. So the students got to see it. They got to see how it worked, use it. And because I would save the recordings and things. So then fast forward, not even a year, where the pandemic, that same student had a job interview via Zoom. Nice. And the student sent me an email, thank you so much for having us to get familiar, because I emphasize you need to at least learn how to use this or know what it is. And she thanked me for it because, she still had to click around a little bit. But what she said, we talk about that anxiety. She said, I didn't have anxiety leading up to the interview because I seen it. I knew how to put it on my computer. I knew how to open it. I knew how it would work. Yep. So I appreciate that. And I thank you for that. So I think those types of scenarios, that's what I have to think about at the, looking at that as far as the students, you're right. Many of them enjoy, and it can be situational. If you have a family person, they may want to go to the job, sometime and connect with, and I say this, and this is from feedback from, again, those who work KPMG, EY, PwC, they may have young hires who live alone. And they're at home 8 hours a day tied to Microsoft Teams, and they may want to at least once or twice a week see somebody, make a
Right.
connection, and work on those connections to help with promotion and to further their, to deepen those work connections. So I think I think things are, in my opinion, from what I've seen in that area, things are still settling in a way,
Oh yeah.
and we're coming out of it. Things have definitely changed,
Oh yeah.
and we're kind of in a settling period, in my opinion.
Yep. My opinion too is that they should have the ability, and if folks aren't electing to go in the office, not necessarily demand 1 day a week or something, but definitely encourage, because nothing, I mean, I sit here all day and I talk to 10 clients a day, but it's different. It's different. I used to talk on the phone. I used to do in person, but that's a lot of work, driving around or transportation. Then you used to talk on the phone. I mean, it's not really, a personal, trying to develop a personal relationship. And then you had Zoom, right? And the most exhausting one is Zoom for some reason. At the end of the day, I'm just shot. Like I'm just like, and taking naps at 6 p.m. And so there's a lot involved. And so, and folks need to experience all of it and not just technology. So, all right. What, besides being an awesome professor for your students out there, I mean, what does Mfon like to do for fun and other activities besides work?
I love work. Outside of that, I write books. So I've got on technology, do research a lot, and we talked about before TED Talk. I've got another one. I've got number 6 coming April 6th.
I'm writing that down. All right. I want to see that. Yeah, prior to the call, just to tell the audience, he had in his email signature a TED Talk link, and it went right to a 7-minute TED Talk, and it was about literally what I took away from a key word, right? Is we need to disconnect to stay connected, and it really resonated with me. But yeah, go on.
No, I think that was a great. I'm very passionate about technology. I was invited. This event is actually a student-led event at the university, and I'll be taking part in that event and supporting the university and the students with that TED Talk event.
Yep.
But I'm very passionate about technology, researching specifically when you talk about accounting, looking at social media, the measuring the return on investment with earned social media, looking at that. Recently, if anyone's interested, a company in Canada, I was able to do some research with their software. They published an article chronicling some of this research that I did on using their software to do a sentiment analysis on earned social media, which has been very, very helpful. So
that's awesome. You're doing a lot of good. I personally appreciate that, because it really resonated. What I was telling prior to him joining today was I'm addicted to LinkedIn. But prior to that, I was on the Snapchat, but I feel like that's healthier. But I was on the Snapchat, whatever, Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, WhatsApp. And he mentioned about a hate like. And I was like, I know what a hate like is. You're just like, you like it, but you're doing it out of spite. And now there's no hate liking on LinkedIn, at least in my opinion. But yeah, and you're not aware of it. And as we move into this advanced technological age, folks need to realize it. It's not just like, turnkey solution, just technology, here you go. It's not easy. I mean, I worked remotely for 5 years. I thought it would just be, a couple days, I'm good. It took me like 7 months to figure out how to do this thing, right? So it's not easy. So what you're doing out there, I could really appreciate and resonate with. So
Thank you.
thank you for joining in today. Any final thoughts before we wrap up for folks?
No, this has been great. If anyone has any questions or would like to contact me, feel free to reach out at my email is makpan@methodist.edu. Happy to always help and answer any questions.
Beautiful. Awesome. Thank you again so much for joining us. To the audience, we'll be back soon with another episode, another guest very soon. Take care. Bye.